Hello to my fellow KW stakeholders. Of course, it's Aaron Kaufman, Chief Stakeholder Evangelist out of Atlanta, Georgia, bringing you our last My 401 KW interview for 2023. These interviews are just me talking with some of our top profit share earners and stakeholder-minded associates, where we're going to dive into, why they joined KW, why they got purposeful about profit share, how they built their profit share, and what it means for them and their future legacy. And today, or this morning, we get to talk to fellow profit share enthusiast and good friend of mine, Michelle Bennett, out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. How you doing today, Michelle?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you again for taking some time out of your schedule to share your story, and hopefully we can inspire a couple of our fellow associates to get purposeful about growing this company that you and I have a huge financial stake in. So before we get into your profit share and what you're trying to do here with that, let's go back. Okay, I know you have a very interesting story. Tell us about who you were before you got into real estate, how you got into real estate, how you ended up coming to KW and opening up that market center in Cedar Rapids.
You bet. So my story is a little bit varied, I guess I would say. I kind of did a little bit of everything before getting into real estate, as a lot of real estate agents did. 2 years doing this, 2 years doing this. I had done scientific editing. I had worked in insurance. I had worked in nonprofit management, all of those kinds of things. And everything I did, I lasted about 2 years. And then I would
Same here.
I would get bored, or the only way I was going to do anything else was if someone died. So I did a lot of different roles that were kind of higher pressure. So when I moved to the Cedar Rapids area, I thought I'm going to take a job that's maybe a little more low key. I took a job at Coldwell Banker. And just as initially a front desk person, I was going to work a nice laid back 9 to 3 mom hour schedule. And then I moved into, of course, that didn't last very long. Yeah. Of course, then I moved into a role as relocation director. And I would work as relocation director, work directly with the clients a lot of times, meet them, and then I would transition them to an agent. And they would often say, well, can't we just work with you? Yeah. And you're like, no, sorry, you got to work with an agent. I'm just here to make the introductions. And I would also then at the end of the day see the paychecks that the real estate agents would get in comparison to what I got. So
to be fair, working relo work at Coldwell Banker, the percentage of the money the agent actually sees per transaction, even though it's probably more than what you were getting compensated to run that. But let's get real. Yeah, that's a tough. And I started at Coldwell Banker too, but we know that a lot of agents who work relo business, they're not running their own business. They're dependent on the company for relo, and they get the percentage of commission based on that. Right?
Yeah. By the time all the splits are done, you end up, maybe 30%. So exactly. It is pretty rough. So from there, I got licensed, moved to a different area. And this is, 20 some years ago. Yeah. So the company I joined at the time was the only company that belonged to more than one MLS. That's how long ago this was. And it was unique. So it was literally the only one. The area I moved to was right in between two of the larger cities, Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. Yep. And so I really needed to be a member of two. That's the company I joined. Progressively, different people recruited me over the years. I ended up starting a division for the largest independent in our area, opened that in Iowa City.
Okay.
And kind of as we went along, things went pretty well. I recruited a whole lot of people into that company, and then wonderful people there, incredibly professional, just a well put together company, but they kind of had a shift in mindset and they really wanted to go to more of a corporate structure. And I really liked the culture that we had built in our smaller little ancillary office. So I started looking around to say, what else can happen in a company? What else can companies offer? And I'll just tell a little story, and I'll try to make it brief. But
we got an hour, Michelle. Don't make it brief. I'm just kidding. Go for it. Yeah.
I had an agent that I absolutely adored. Top producing agent, made well over $500,000 a year, which at that time was a lot more. This would have been 2014, 2015. Doesn't take as much to do that now as it did then, just based on average sale prices. And he came to me and he was going to have to leave my company. And of course I was the broker manager, and every time someone leaves, that hurts you, no matter how you try to cut it.
Of course.
you always look internal and what could I have done differently? And as he sat across from me, he cried, I cried, and he said to me, I'm 62 years old. I've had my second heart attack. I have no savings. The only equity I have is in my rental properties in my house. And I have no way to leave a legacy for my family. And this is a gentleman who, while I was there, had helped recruit a significant amount of company dollar. And when I say significant amount, when I broke it down, the amount of company dollar attributable to this one person who had recruited to her company was over $250,000 a year.
Wow.
A year. This is how good he was at that. And so as part of that, he would receive a bonus. He might get $1,500. He might get an iPad, maybe a tiny portion of commission for 2 years, something like that. And I looked at that and I thought, what an unequitable distribution in that situation. This is someone who we are literally building the company on the back of, and he's telling me he's having heart attacks because he works too hard and has too much stress in his life. He doesn't have a way to build anything at all for his family. He spends everything he makes and doesn't have a plan at all. And I thought there has to be some way for a company to be able to share some sort of the revenue, to these people that are helping build it.
And let me add to that, Michelle. I mean, not only that, okay. And look, you were probably, I would assume, an abundant manager, right? I mean, you were trying to help your agents and love on them, but you were not necessarily equipped with models and systems to teach your agents how to build a real estate business that they could leverage themselves out of as well, right? So this guy, if somebody was teaching him how to brand himself, how to leverage out his, leverage talent and systems, he could have had a retirement plan based around his real estate business, not to mention being rewarded for profit shares. I just want to make that point that, it's great to reward your agents for growing the company, but to also teach them how to build a real estate business that they can leverage themselves out of is what makes us so special as a company as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I will admit that's been one of the most challenging things for me, coming from that background, moving into a true MREA model for myself in my own business, to be able to teach it and to really be able to model it, to show people how to do it. So that's one of my major commitments for 2024 is that's what I'm going to do, is really.
Well, and look, you having your background, I think that's made you who you are today. It's made me who I am today. Look, I had nothing bad to say about Caldwell Banker on tape, but I will say, if it wasn't for that experience, I don't think I would be where I am today at Keller Williams, right? Because it gave me some perspective. And when I talk to people that only know Keller Williams, Michelle, or that have just joined us recently and don't know our history and what we've been through to get to the top of this mountain, they're at a little bit of a disadvantage because they don't understand how good they really have it until they've, been in another company or, was a part of a market center that was Keller who, et cetera, et cetera. But sorry to cut you off.
No, that's perfect.
So this agent really touched you. The moment he was having, it sort of sparked this idea that, hey, there's got to be a better way to reward agents for growing a company. And that led you to what?
Yeah. So from there, I started thinking about, and a couple of different agents had said to me during that time, why don't you start your own company? Yeah. And I said, oh gosh, I could never do that. First of all, I don't have the financial wherewithal to just pop up a company. Right. I rely a lot on my company for leadership, et cetera. So as I started looking at that, then people just kept kind of saying it. And so I was like, I guess I could look at this. Like, this might be a possibility. What would I want that to look like? Yeah. And so there were certain things I wanted. The profit share model was obviously a huge piece of it. Yeah. Another piece of it was some sort of models and systems, because I was writing classes to be able to teach our agents, nowhere near to the scale of what Gary Keller, Jay Papasan, Dan Jakes could do. I was just writing like 6 weeks to stardom. I call it kind of like classes. Yeah. But trying to come up with something. So I was like, somebody's got to have done this, right? I wanted agent representation. The company that I worked for, again, wonderful, amazing, incredibly intelligent people, but most of them had never made their living in real estate. So they had made their living from other things. It was a family, generational company. None of them had ever been actual real estate agents. And sometimes I felt there was a little bit of a disconnect on that.
Yeah.
And so I wanted agent representation. I wanted the people who were making the decisions and making the policies, the major ones that kind of shape the company. I wanted them to be agents. I wanted them to have a voice. So as I Googled everything that I was looking for, one name just kept coming up over and over and over. And it was Keller Williams, Keller Williams, Keller Williams. ALC came up, MREA came up, and profit share. And I was mystified and fascinated by profit share. And so I ran all kinds of numbers and I talked to different people without any inside track at all. I didn't know anyone.
Yeah.
Williams. So I was trying, and I was like, how does a company make any money when they give half of it away? Like I couldn't figure it out. And the one thing I was trying to do without knowing anything was I was trying to do it in a revenue share model.
Yeah.
And then when I actually did get some insight into how Keller Williams works, I found out that you can actually make money running a company if you do it the right way. And that's a profit share model rather than a revenue share.
So let's stop there for a second because I want people to make sure they really understand the difference. Now, was there a revenue sharing model in Cedar Rapids at that time? I know there were some. No,
we didn't have anything like that at all.
Okay. Now, this is 2017, 16, something
16.
like that.
Yep.
Now, I want people to understand that was only 7 years ago, Michelle.
Right.
And like you had to Google 7 years ago, agent-centric, model systems, right? And that's how you got Keller Williams on your map. And Cedar Rapids, I mean, it's a smaller city, but it's not like a one stoplight town, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and so, the message here for people are, we're not in every market in North America, right? There are probably some markets, certainly in the Midwest, where people have even heard of Keller Williams, right? Or even had even thought of an idea of an agent-centric company, right? The other question I have for you is, I just interviewed Rochelle Bennett out of Des Moines on Monday. And
yes,
my favorite, not my favorite, but the most powerful moments for me in KW was obviously what happened in Des Moines, Iowa, with a local independent. Now, that was not the same independent that you were at, but were you aware? Because that seems like it's right around the same time, maybe 2018, 19 is when that happened. I don't know if you had heard anything of that in Cedar Rapids, or how that experience as you launched Cedar Rapids, did that impact you? Were you aware of what was going on there?
Not really. So the funny thing about that is, Des Moines and Cedar Rapids are only a couple hours apart. So there was a Keller Williams in Des Moines. They had already gone through all of that by the time I was looking at this. I read a couple articles and I read some kind of legal findings on that, because of course there were lawsuits involved in that. So I read that stuff and I thought, boy, that independent company is being pretty about this whole situation. Sure. And I'm like, what is this Keller Williams thing? Again, I didn't explore it at that time. I think it was maybe 2 years prior, something like that. And Quad Cities, it's only an hour away, but our markets are so individual that we really don't hear much. We don't know who the top producers are in those markets necessarily. We don't know what's going on. So no, once I started getting into that in a little more depth, as far as exploring opening a Keller Williams, then everyone started sharing that story. So for people who don't know that, I don't know if you want to share.
Yeah, I'm going to tell it. I can't help myself. So just for people that didn't watch on Monday or don't know about the Des Moines situation, guys, there was a local brand-centric independent company, had huge market share in Des Moines, when they wanted to stop KW from growing because they knew that we were a higher evolution of a real estate company than they were. So they decided to pass some rule where they would only pay Keller Williams agents $1 on any of their listings that we sold. Now, how they got away with that, I don't know, but it probably has something to do with the fact that the board of realtors in Des Moines were packed full of this company's agents. All right. But look, KW took the high road. We decided as a company that we were going to create what was called a family fund company-wide, where agents from all around KW could just check a little box on their green sheet when they turn in a commission check and donate money to help our agents, our fellow stakeholders in Des Moines, Iowa, get compensated for those transactions that they only got paid $1 for. And bada bing, bada bam, we raised over $2 million in money. We paid all the agents that received $1 in commissions. They received a full commission from us. Rochelle reminded me that Mo flew everybody out from Des Moines to family reunion. And look, bottom line is Des Moines culture is unbreakable. Now, I will say that, but I will also say I would expect us to be even bigger in Des Moines. But the truth is, we don't do a great job telling these stories. We don't do a great job telling these stories within our own company and outside of our company. And look, you found out about it once you joined KW, but man, that moment could have been be a real galvanization for Des Moines, for Iowa, for the company. And that's why I continue to tell stories like that and Mega Relief, because these are the moments that I think people don't understand Keller Williams culture at the highest level until something like that happens, like Des Moines or a natural disaster, or you get sick. And then you realize, oh, wow, I'm a part of a global real estate company of 200,000 stakeholders that are vested in my success and have an incentive to care about me. And, that to me is what makes us so uniquely different than a revenue sharing company, Michelle. Because look, a revenue sharing company only creates a downline relationship, okay? And it's your job to train and nurture the agents you bring into those companies, because they're not a training and consulting company. So number one, it's not passive, it's residual. But the bigger conversation is this, Michelle. For our associates that participate in profit share, I hope they really understand that they're not just vested in the success of the agents in their profit share tree. They're also vested in the success of every agent in their profit share tree's market centers too. And look, guys, our unique culture, which I really hope you agree, is the number one reason to be in business with us. Our culture, it starts with profit share. That is the true vested interest in a common goal that is a catalyst for our interdependent culture. And it's one of the ways that we're inherently different than a revenue sharing company, particularly a publicly traded virtual one. But anyways, back to you, Michelle. So you found out about KW, right, online, which is amazing. So talk about how you took the next step, who you picked as your sponsor, because
Sure.
It didn't sound like anybody was trying to recruit you.
Everybody has one, right? So from there, Mark King laughs about this a little bit. I sent a general inquiry to the company and said, here I am. I'm looking to start a Keller Williams in this area. No one responded to me.
Oh my God, shocker. What? Nobody responded to you.
Mark's like, yeah, that was probably me that should have at the time. But then after that, I was like, okay, I'm not giving these people a whole long time to respond to me.
I love that.
I maybe waited like 2 days. And then there was only one person I knew in the entirety of Keller Williams. His name's Ted Jacobson. And he was team leader.
Captain Ted Jacobson.
Captain Ted, yes.
Oh my God, that's one of my favorite people. No question about it. Love him. Love his stakeholder meetings when he's got his microphone and his captain hat on. He's such high energy. Love that guy. Okay, go ahead.
So from there, the funny thing is Ted used to be an agent in our market. We didn't like each other. We were competitors.
Yeah.
He and I are very different personalities. He's boisterous and bold, and the microphone and the hat, and a persona. He's a former radio person.
Sure.
And I'm quiet, introverted, just kind of like to stick to my tasks and do my thing. And nobody even really knew how much I sold unless they actually looked. Yeah. I'm not a visible person. So I begrudgingly reached out to Ted. And the only reason I probably even did is because his girlfriend at the time had been my client. So she was my client. She bought a house from me. Then I knew they were dating. She told me she was dating him. I was kind of like, I don't know. Anyway, so then after that, I got to know him a little better. We got to hang out in kind of a different arena. So I reached out to him, and then he said, this is fabulous. I've been waiting for this call for 7 years, because he had been moved into Keller Williams for that long. He's like, you're the perfect person to start it. We have to start talking about this right away. He jumped on it, got me to family reunion, made sure that I sat through all the sessions with him and with his OP. Amazing. Yeah. At one time I was taking pictures of the slides.
Yeah.
And his OP at the time leaned over to me and he's like, you can't do that. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. These are just really great ideas. And I want to take them back to some of the teams that I work with. And he goes, I'm totally kidding. You can have everything. I'll send you the slides afterwards. Yeah. So that part initially was very impressive to me.
Did you see Gary at that time?
I did.
Speaking?
Yeah. And I left and Ted, so it's like, so what do you think of Gary? And I was like, well, he's pretty arrogant, but I like it. Like he's just real, he's going to say what he thinks. And I loved that part. So after that, I had a lot of things going on. I had just left a leadership training with my other company. We were kind of trying to get hyped up, and I was still wavering a little bit, not necessarily bought into the culture anymore there. And then I got fired from that company when they found out that I did go to family reunion for Keller Williams.
That's the first time I've heard that.
I know. I've heard that from a few people too. That does happen. And I don't begrudge that business decision at all. It was dangerous. It's a
smart business decision outside of maybe first attempting to keep you.
Right.
But obviously, when you got someone looking at KW, or God, you got someone at EXP who's at KW, you don't want them to be recruiting their agents in the office before they leave. So I can understand that, nothing against them, but it's an opportunity when someone leaves KW for us to look in the mirror and say, hey, why are they leaving? How can we be better, et cetera. Right. Yeah. Didn't sound like they went through that process with you.
Well, I think there was a lot of fear. And the funny thing was we had talked at a leadership meeting a few weeks before that, and maybe a month. Anyway, somebody said something about KW and they heard so-and-so was maybe bringing it to the market. And I was like, I actually made the comment, it's a really good thing that the people who are talking about bringing Keller Williams here aren't very dynamic. So I don't think a lot of people would follow them or do much with them. We all said if the right person had the KW model here, it would take off because there's no one else offering anything like it. So at that point, I definitely was not prepared to start my own company. I hadn't done near enough exploration. I didn't know hardly anyone. Ted kept after me.
You had family. You had family at the time, or were you on your own?
Yeah, no, I had family. So. Yeah. Boom.
I'm a lot of stuff going on, right? Yeah.
Figure out how to keep my sales business going. Sure. Call and see how I can switch into another brokerage in like a day, not knowing what I'm going to do with my life.
So KW wasn't there, so hard to kind of switch it over to KW. So what did you do at that moment?
So I switched to another local independent.
Yeah.
And thinking that I really just wanted to focus on sales for a while. No intention of probably starting a company anytime soon, maybe a few years down the road, but not intentional to do that in the next 6 months or anything like that. That company then really started pressuring me to buy into ownership in a kind way, not in an egregious way or anything like that. But they just really wanted me to buy into ownership there. And as those conversations started getting stronger, I was concerned. As soon as I saw financials, things like that, I knew there was kind of a point of no return where I was not being fair to them. Yeah. So I started kind of trying to figure out, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? Ted, again, very good with a follow-up, introduced me to Mike Brody, introduced me to Joe and Mary Harker.
Love those people. And by the way, I'm interviewing Mike Brody. That's my next interview in January.
Oh, he's fabulous.
He's been so good to me over the years, when I was a real troublemaker. He was always really good to me. And I just can't wait to dive deep into his story as well. And the Harkers too, I think back when they were the ones that were the profit share video testimonials that I would watch, love those guys. Yeah.
So each of them had said, we'll give you 15 minutes. I think they probably had this a few times. Yeah. But each of them we ended up spending, my husband and I over 2.5 hours with. Wow. So the 15 minutes got extended. We had, I had a great time. I learned a ton about Keller Williams.
Did you meet with them? Did you go meet them in person? Because they're in the Midwest, right? The Harkers are?
No, actually, I met everyone in New Orleans.
Okay.
The reunion. So I met all of them. Then I think I met Mike again at Mega Camp. So I came back down for Mega Camp. And got to spend a little more time with him. He actually, and at that point, I had made a couple of inquiries deeper into trying to get a meeting with John Davis. Yeah. And, I didn't know him from Adam. He didn't know me from Adam. So then Mike went and contacted John and Shelly for me and said, I think I've got the person. Yeah. So
did Mike share his profit share earnings with you?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah.
The guy was at one point the number one profit share earner at KW. He's like 2 or 3 now, but I would assume he's earned over 8 to 10 million, lifetime.
I mean, that I think the month before he had his profit share statement, it was over $100,000 for the month. The month.
No, so. Insane. Yeah. So he got you a meeting with John Davis, and then that led to. Let's not talk too much about John Davis, but let's. I heard of him. I've heard of him. But anyways, so then what was that final sort of push over the line for you to say, okay,
Yeah.
I'm taking the major leap of faith. Okay. Yeah.
So I think honestly, the major push for me was the other company really saying, we want to sit down, we want to meet with you, we want to share financials. And I'm like, I can't in good faith sit and look at their financials. And so I wasn't fully prepared. I didn't feel like I was totally ready. I hadn't talked to any other investors at that point. I didn't know how that was going to work or who they were going to be. But I finally decided, okay, if you guys have faith in me, I'll go for it. So I went ahead and signed up with Shelly Gonzalez, who was John's assistant at that time. She started working with me on processes, getting a mega associate office under the Quad Cities office, et cetera, et cetera. And then I started working to find investors, to find people who were excited about some of the same things that I was, and then start recruiting agents from there. So,
well, it's amazing too. I mean, I just want people to remember this is 2017, 18. Okay. Right. I mean, like, I feel like we were the number one real estate company in North America at that point. So,
but it was still Keller Who here.
No, right now, but what a huge advantage for you. It's not, I mean, because, I've been with KW for 20 years. I know people here in Atlanta that were like Sean Rawls, that were the first people, and they had to convince people like this is a legitimate model. You got to bring the number one real estate company into Quad Cities, where all there are local dependent companies. Right now, you had to take a huge leap of faith. What, your husband, did he think you were crazy? Was he like, hey, this is it? Did you bring him to FSO? Did you have to share all the models and ideas with him? Yeah.
They pretty much required that. I mean, you learn from everything over the years, and I think they had learned at different times that you really need buy-in from the spouse. You really need them to be the one kind of pushing for it. Right. And I would say my husband Al probably pushed me more than I pushed myself to it. So he was like, "Let's do this.
That's awesome.
You can do it on your own. You can do it," kind of a thing.
So you opened up a mega agent office. Essentially, that's how it started. You opened your own office for your own business, but then you had to start recruiting investors and agents. How did that go down? Tell me how that all played out.
It went, I think coming from the outside and opening a Keller Williams office, having no concept of MREA, no concept of the accounting system, no concept of kind of how the day-to-day business runs, was very challenging. And I didn't think it would be. So I was incredibly overly optimistic, and I knew I could recruit because I had done that in the past. And I knew this model was perfect for people on so many levels. And like you said, number one real estate company in the world, and stand alone on so many aspects of real estate. So I thought this is going to be super easy. Parts of it were easy. The parts I didn't really understand, and I've mentioned many times to leadership, is that it would be really good for someone when anyone is starting up that kind of a venture, to have kind of the best of the best sit with them. So you've got a great OP. I'm not good at reaching out and asking for help. But that's a thing. Like if one of the greatest OPs was volunteered or voluntold to come sit with me for a week and go through everything, that would be helpful. MCA, same thing. Like send an MCA that's just crushed it and have them sit with your MCA as you're training them. And
I'm hearing Market Center playbook, launch playbook, right?
Yes, yeah.
And by the way, look, there was no profit share playbook, until a couple months ago. So I would challenge you, right, to maybe even reach out to Jason Abrams and say, look, I just thinking, that I could have ramped up my Market Center so much faster if there was a playbook and resource. I mean, look, we're spitballing here, but this is how things get done in KW.
Yeah, you're right.
We take ownership and we say, I see a need. I see the need for a profit share playbook. Let's make it happen, right? So I think that could be a great opportunity to add some value and pay it forward, right?
Yeah, but you're absolutely right.
Now, I would imagine that area, is a very sort of more of a traditional market, right? Midwest. You've got stronger relationships. Everything's about family, right? There's a resistance to innovative models that disrupt, right? So let's talk about maybe some of that, but also just how you were able to get your core agents, your core investors. What were those conversations? What were people? Were you catching flack for being the person that was bringing KW in there? Just, talk about what that experience was like.
Yeah, for sure. Initially, there was a lot of resistance from the other brokers,
Yeah.
understandably. You know, it was a
Sure.
very, very scary model for them.
Yeah.
So, you know, Keller Williams model obviously recommends, or I don't know that it's an official recommendation, but generally, yeah, in FSA, they talk about, you know, get your 5 investors and try to get them from a few different companies.
Yeah.
So the likelihood that other agents will come from those
Absolutely
companies kind of follows. So we did that. I would say, kind of my sister was an investor, right?
Okay.
And
That
so
was an easy one. All
that was
right.
an easy one. And
Who was
she's a
your
top
first tough
investor.
one? Who was your first tough one? How did you break that nut?
I would say most of the people came easier than I ever thought they would.
Interesting.
And one of our investors ended up recruiting another one of the investors and basically just showed them the numbers, just said, you know, look at your business here, look at your business here. And last year you paid your company $144,000 in company dollar.
Exactly.
Here's
So
what
the cap was a big attraction, obviously, right? I mean, it's hard to probably, did you talk about profit share in that? You know, it was an idea at that time for you guys, but was that a part of the conversations? It was also, hey, this is an agent-centric company where agents are involved in this, because, you know, this had all built up over the years, you know, back to that one agent you had that sort of conversation with, right? Like this was fulfilling all these things that you were looking for. But was that what the conversations were about? Just, you know, not just price, obviously. Price is, you know, you have a cap commission that speaks for itself, but how much did you get into culture, profit share, the vision for KW, Gary Keller? Did you even get into that stuff early on, or was it just
I would say I was super excited about all of that stuff. So I talked about all of it right away. I talked about ALC, I talked about profit share. You know, I emphasized profit share. And I think honestly, we don't do enough of that now. At the time, you know, it was a major thing. And I would lead the conversation with that. And I think an important thing to remember, and I know you've emphasized this, is that every single person is looking for something different. So profit share might ring with one person, ALC rings with one person, the economic model rings with another person. For me, I remember different people over the years had kind of talked to me about Keller Williams, and I was shut down because the only thing they focused on was the cap. And I didn't care that much about that. But I cared a lot about the profit share model. So that was exciting to me. The idea of passive income. More so was the idea that I could pass it to 2 generations.
Exactly.
That, you know, leaving something for my family, you know, I didn't grow up with money, that kind of thing, leaving something to make their lives easier. And my daughter actively participates in profit share now. She's an agent, she's an attorney.
Love it.
So she gets a little bit of profit share because she's in the downline, and she, you know, functions as a broker for us and things like that in an ancillary market.
Sure.
So that was most important to me. And I think that's a really important piece to remember as you're talking to people. Look for them to lead you into what piece of Keller Williams is important, but you have to talk about all of them. Because if you don't talk about all of them, you don't know which one they care about.
I totally agree. And I hear people saying, look, you know, anybody that knows me knows that, first of all, I teach a 3-hour quote unquote profit share class. I literally talk about the money for 10 minutes. Okay. The conversation of profit share is a conversation of culture. And a conversation of culture starts with profit share. I think people need to understand, because I hear people say it all the time, like, I don't even talk about profit share in my recruiting presentation. I'm like, well, I don't know how you're communicating our value proposition at a high level if you're not talking about the entire catalyst for the value proposition, right? It's not about the money. It's about being a stakeholder. It's about being vested in the success of your fellow stakeholders. It's about having a say. It's about being a part of not just an office, but a global real estate company of 200,000 people that are vested in a common goal, right? And I think, you know, that's where I'm trying to kind of just hammer home this part of this company that I just feel like we're losing the connection between the two, you know, like, and, you know, I've been with KW for 20 years. I mean, I don't meet a lot of people at KW that have been with our company as long as me, and, you know, or even you. And so there are people that are, you know, we're turning over so fast. We're adding 50, 60,000 people a year, but we're also losing, 40, 50,000 a year. And we got to make sure that all these new people that are going to be running our offices and, running our company know that, look, it all starts with profit share. This is what has been, has totally turned the real estate industry upside down, is that we're the first company to treat agents like partners. Okay. And it's not just about sharing the profits with them. It's about treating them like stakeholders. And I say this all the time, Michelle, 100% of Keller Williams agents are a stakeholder in their market center and in this company. Unfortunately, less than 30% of us are being financially rewarded. All right. But the fact is, we're all stakeholders, whether we like it or not. And if you're not talking about profit share in your recruiting presentations and in your onboarding process and in your stakeholder meetings, don't be surprised if, none of your agents participate in culture and participate in profit share, because you're assuming that they know. And I'm telling you, I've been doing this for 12 years. They don't know. And they still don't know. And then we're the number one freaking real estate company on the planet that's given back about $2 billion in profit share. And it continues to be the best kept secret in Keller Williams. And I'm just getting to a point where I'm like, look, do I need to walk around with a megaphone? Although my voice is very loud. I'm just saying, like, I feel like it's becoming less and less of a focus of this company. And we need to be leaning into it more, because Michelle, growth is messy. And I bet you could say it even on your own local level, is that when you grow an office, right, like the culture, the biggest challenge is for the culture to keep up with it, right? So
for sure.
Talk about this. So look, you got these great, it sounds like you got some great core new agents, some great investors. Okay. You started to grow the office, right? How long did it take you guys before you started profit sharing? Do you remember?
We started profit sharing in that first year. So awesome. Within a few months and it wasn't a whole lot. To begin with, it never is. No. But we started profit sharing very quickly. It was a focus for us. So we made strategic decisions to make sure that we could do that. Yeah. Because you can't sell people on something and then never have anything to offer them. So it's a big part of it too. And we've had a challenging couple of years here in Cedar Rapids. And part of that I think we did lose touch with was emphasizing the profit share program, really talking about it from an excited stage. And I think as we stopped doing that, the culture kind of diminished as well. And we're, Midwest nice, humility is a big thing, all of that. I think we worried a little too much about that and not enough about really pushing the idea that you can live a big life and it's okay to do that. Simplicity isn't always the best thing. And I think that's hammered on us all the time. Live simply, live on a tight budget, all those things. So, those are great in concept, but the idea is, if you can build this thing big enough, then you don't have to worry about it. That takes the pressure off your sales side of the business. And you're just doing what you do anyway. If someone asks you about your company and you're happy at your company, you're going to tell them, why don't you come join me? You don't have to sit there and make 40 calls a day to find people who might want to move. You have transactions with people all the time. Exactly. So it can come up naturally.
Well, and to add to that, let's get real. If you don't participate in culture, okay, if you're not following our systems and models, if you're not adopting our tech, if you don't care about the profitability of the market center, I don't feel like, one, you're going to be compelled to want to share this company with people because you're not having a high level experience. But the other side of it is, how in the world are you going to have an authentic conversation about why they should be in business with KW if you're not even taking advantage of the reason to be with KW, right? And so when people always ask me, they're like, hey, what's the one thing I need to do to get purposeful about profit share? I say, why don't you walk the walk first, okay, before you go out there and talk the talk, right? Because recruiting is not recruiting. I mean, it's attracting, it's consulting, right? And if you don't believe in what you're talking about, or you can't explain something, you're probably going to avoid those conversations. All right. And I think that's the kind of thing that I want us to get back to, is the basics. And I will say this, I'm more excited about the future of Keller Williams than I've ever been. Now, I know it's been a tough couple of years, okay, for our industry, for KW, but there's a great saying I heard from Diana Kokoska, and she said, you're going to get people in the pain to create change. And look, I love KW, okay, but we were a rocket ship, okay, with absolutely no competition that just took over this industry, right? And the growth initiative, there were some good things that came out of that, obviously, but I think we also kind of lost our true north. It became about being number one in every category instead of culture and purpose and all that stuff. And I just tell you, from my personal experiences in this company, the conversations I'm having with leadership at KWRI are so much different than they were 5-6 years ago. And I'm really excited to see what's going to happen next, because I think the best thing that's ever happened to our company were some of these new flashy objects, some of these revenue sharing companies. I think what's happening with the industry being under assault from Wall Street backed tech disruptors and lawsuits, what that does for us is it just shines a light on Gary Keller being the guy that's willing to fight for the future of the agents. And I actually think as we go deeper into this shifting industry and deeper into the digital age, I think our purpose and our community is going to be even more valuable. But the key is going to be, Michelle, we can't deliver on purpose and community if the majority of our people don't understand why and how we're different. And I think that's the moment we're in, is that we have a moment right now before we take the next big jump as a company, which we're going to do. The question is, are we going to resemble the company that got us to where we are today? And I think that, to me, culture and purpose and community are what I think solidifies our profit share legacies for generations to come, So with that said, look, you've had some ups and downs, right? You grew this office. How many agents do you guys have right now?
163, I believe.
163, right?
Yeah.
And
we've been quite a bit higher.
Sure.
We experienced some of the same things that different markets have. I just want to touch on something you said there.
Please.
I think I would agree with you 100% that the conversations going on with leadership right now are back to incredibly agent centric, which is why I wanted to join this company in the first place. And I think we did get a little bit away from that. We got too aspirational in kind of corporate goal for a little while.
Sure.
And I think now it is really, truly the playbooks. And just having this conversation with you reminds me, I don't know how much we've shared that. Like, I don't know how much we've talked about that. We haven't done book clubs around those kinds of things. That the company is doing amazing things, but do our agents even know about it? Yeah, that's
well. And look, you and I both know the greatest challenge to KW is every KW office is independently owned and operated, right? So look, we all have the tools. Okay, now could KW do a better job pointing us in the direction of those tools? Sure, but what we're doing with KW Connect and revamping that and the playbooks. But the bottom line is, market center ownership groups, they get to decide how much they leverage or how much they buy into. And so I think we're starting to also see, us sort of holding some of these ownership groups a little bit more accountable, because look, now with our tech platform, there's no more excuses. I mean, I'm sorry, you got the best tech, you got the best culture, models and systems. Agents need those things now more than ever. And if you lean into it, my guess is you're going to come out on the other side stronger than you were before, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I agree with you. And I think it is probably the most exciting time to be within Keller Williams. There's just so much opportunity. And I know that the tech can be a little intimidating to people.
Yeah.
But realistically, one of the things we're focusing on is a lot of the tech training classes, and then workshops. So you just come in, you bring your computers. We're just going to sit down and do that.
Exactly.
But we need to apply the same to profit share. So like you said, are we talking about it enough? Are we talking about it enough in our stakeholder meetings? Are we emphasizing the possibilities? Are we sharing, what we have for profit share and what we've earned in profit share? And in the last 2 years might have been down a lot, but over time, many of us have earned an additional income from profit share. So,
well, and like I said before, Michelle, I mean, it's never about the money. And I would tell people, one of the things I loved about my experience at KW was that, my team leader would get up at the first stakeholder meeting after the 21st of the month, and he would pass out the profit share statements. Okay. Now I'm so thrilled, by the way, that they're now on the intranet, so I can stop raging about that. But he would start with the lowest check, because oftentimes the lowest check was somebody's first check. All right. But to me, the excitement is more for that than for the agent like a Jennifer Barnes in my office who was getting $5,000, $10,000 checks every month. I mean, that was sort of like a given, but it was when somebody got their first check that I think that is where we need to get back to, because, I was actually going to do a post today, but then I didn't want to dilute people watching this post or this live video. But I was saying, just because your profit share money is down or your market center's profitability is down right now, doesn't mean that you need to lower your excitement and enthusiasm around profit share. I mean, these are the moments where I think profit share money, even though my profit share money's down, in a shifting market, it means a lot more to me to make that money than when the market's up, right? And so people need to understand that if your market center is only giving back a couple $1,000s a month in a shifting market, that could be the difference between an agent paying their power bill, their car bill, their whatever. And if we don't talk about it because we're quote unquote embarrassed about how unprofitable we are as a market center, or we're not even profitable, so God forbid we talk about profit share. I mean, imagine if our founding agents like Mike Brody were like, hey, let's not talk about profit share because it's just an idea. Like, where would we be as a company? And so in this moment, I think we've been apologizing, for years for profit share. Like, oh God, no, we don't want to talk about it. We're a real estate company. We're about training systems and models and culture, not about profit share. Like, nobody joins KW for profit share. Well, guess what? Yeah, they do. And it's a big reason for why they stay. And it's actually, I believe, when followed appropriately and believed in, it's the greatest retention tool for a market center and the greatest culture building tool in a KW market center. So let me ask you this, Michelle.
Yeah.
Okay, not everybody who owns a KW office sees profit share as an investment and growth, okay, and culture. What do you, and look, at times like these, when, look, and by the way, I'm all about what just passed at the ILC. Okay. Initially, I wasn't, you probably witnessed it in live on Facebook. Aaron's freaked out and then come to Jesus moment. Okay. But once again, I mean, look, I'm not perfect. I'm failing forward. I say stupid stuff all the time and I don't always know the answers. I'm a very emotional guy, but I will tell you, being on the task force and learning what it's like to be an owner at KW, which is something that I didn't really fully understand, is that people need to understand, it's a tough time to be an owner of a KW office, right? I mean, not only is the industry, under assault, agents' commissions are under assault, and you guys are making less and less money because it's a more competitive industry from an agent model standpoint. So I'm excited about those changes, but how do you feel at a time when all this stuff is going on and after these changes have happened? How do you feel about profit share? And what would you say to an owner who's moving forward with KW or an investor group about how important profit share really needs to be as a core sort of rock of building a solid market center?
I would say it is definitely a foundational piece. A couple of our investors, Curtis Hartsock, Melissa Hodap, are doing a lot more teaching and talking about profit share.
I love that.
Staff, our brokers, it's an emphasis for us going forward, and we're going to make sure that we're leading into it in every conversation. So as we're talking with our newer agents as they're getting started, it hasn't really been a big piece of our onboarding process. Just like you said, we're not talking enough about getting people started in that process. And I think that's when it's usually really easy because they know other people that are doing the same thing. They've just been in classes with people.
Exactly.
It's an incredible opportunity. But our staff is really embracing the idea that it kind of starts everything else, right down to, like you mentioned, caring about expenses. I'll never forget, in an old company, I hopped in an agent's car, and when I looked in the back seat as I was getting in, she had like paper clips and and sticky notes. And I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, well, the office pays for it and I pay enough company dollars, so I just take this stuff from here.
Exactly.
And I was like, okay, well, I'm the manager, so that's awkward. But then it's those kinds of things that people do start to care about when they care about how that trickles down to their profit share. So
I'm the same way. I used to joke about that, one, I was always like the guy that we were upstairs in a building. So like, my mom raised me well. I'm the son of a Jewish mother, but I'm always the one helping agents, older agents carry stuff up the stairs, but also was like making sure the lights were off at night, or that nobody's stealing copy paper or toilet paper, right? Because I had a financial investment in that office. And, I don't know if you're the same way, but I'm the same way. I travel all around North America teaching, and anytime I see a Keller Williams sign, I'm like, Keller Williams, cha-ching, because my downline is in 300 Keller Williams offices, right? Like that's how I think. When I see a Keller Williams sign, I think there's a piece of me that has a vested interest in that listings being sold, and it just, when people say to me, Michelle, they're like, thank you for all you do to grow KW. I'm like, look, thank you, first of all. But second of all, I'm just taking ownership of this real estate company I have a huge financial investment in. All right. Maybe you should do the same. And that's kind of the mindset that I think, we have got to just weave it back into the fabric of KW, right? Like, this ain't about profit share, guys. It's about being a stakeholder. It's about being at an interdependent real estate company in what has always been an dependent industry. And when you got all these flashy objects that are claiming to be KW, but just a better version, there's one thing that they literally cannot replicate, and that is our culture. Okay. But our culture starts with profit share. It starts with thinking like a stakeholder. And if we don't keep telling that story and really pounding that home, don't you care about where this company's going to be 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now when we're not alive or we're not selling real estate? I mean, I'm building a legacy. Okay. I don't know about you, Michelle.
Yeah.
I'm expecting my profit share to be paying out money 100 years from now.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
So anyways, just like, sometimes I go off on a little rant, but I just want to make that point that I think, we get so caught up in gross recruits. I actually think the next wave of growth and profitability is going to come from within. Okay. It's going to come from helping our agents we were already in business with understand why and how we're different, and getting, turning non-cappers into cappers, and, building a market center that agents will never want or need to leave. And I just feel like all the things that are happening right now, whether it be the industry, the Wall Street backed tech disruptors, the lawsuits, the fact that I feel like we're more divided than we've ever been as a country, as a species, I just feel like one company is emerging, okay, as a bright, shining light. And I feel like this is our moment, Michelle. I really do. I feel like we took over this industry in the last shift. When the market's up, nobody cares about anything, because houses are selling like hotcakes. It's when markets are down. It's when industries are under assault. It's when we're feeling more divided that people need purpose and community, systems, models, things like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, just as you're saying that, and kind of as you always say, take ownership. So you see something that isn't working well or something that you don't like, instead of, maybe complaining about it or making suggestions, go do something about it. If you see a class that's missing, offer to teach it.
Exactly.
If you see a way to make the office look better, like some of our brokers just went and decorated an office one day, and I'm like, great, that's awesome. You're taking ownership in whatever way that may be. They're helping and training staff as needed. Things like that make just a huge difference in that overall cultural feeling of the office. Absolutely.
And I'm always just, amazed when people who have substantial downlines end up going to another company. It's like, that's this, instead of staying and fighting and being a part of the positive change, right? Here's this flashy object, bam, you're out. Well, anyways, look, let's talk about, so you've earned over 200,000, right? So for a lifetime profit share, you said about 150 people in your profit share tree. Are they all, majority of it stems from obviously what you've built there? Yeah.
And I think one point I want to make about that is often people will say to me, well, you have 150 people because you're the OP. That has absolutely zero to do with it. Yes, I had some responsibility for recruiting in the very beginning, but overall, I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I'm still doing transactions, not you as an Aaron, because you do things a lot differently, but as most of our agents do. I'm doing transactions, I'm having conversations, and then I'll make a follow-up call. I'll send a thank you note. I always make sure and give people a thank you at the closing, whether I had a good deal or a bad deal with them. Unless they're just an ugly person, then I won't. Overall, I'm going to give them a gift card. I'm going to give them a thank you note. And those kinds of things really matter to them. So then when I follow up in a couple of weeks and just ask to take them to lunch, to take them to coffee, whatever, they always say, now don't try to recruit me. And then I don't. I just have a conversation about business, and they always lead the conversation to recruiting. So I think, just to emphasize, really, it has nothing to do with your role or who you are or how prolific you are. It's just being nice to other people, and they will ask you. And if they have consistent good deals with you and with other people in your company, they'll ask more and more. So
and I think it's never been easier in the history of Keller Williams to come from contribution and to, just share with people value, right? And I always hear agents are like, I teach my 3-hour class, and they're like, well, you didn't tell me how to do it. And I'm like, okay, well, how do you sell a house? I mean,
Mhm.
literally, like, do you wait for the phone to ring? Or, I mean, or do you commit to mastery? Do you get into relationships with people? Do you find their pain, offer them a solution, find out what makes them happy, show them how to smile more, right? And then wait for the timing, right? To be there.
Yeah.
Now, I would say, look, the one thing I will say, Michelle, is, Ted, like I think back to what you said, Ted said, right? When you called him, it's like, I've been waiting for this call for a long time, right?
Mhm.
Well, maybe if he wasn't waiting so long and he was more purposeful about reaching out to you, you would have been here sooner. Now, that's nothing against Ted. I'm just saying, I said the same thing when I joined KW. God, I wish I'd come here sooner.
Absolutely.
Well, I get we want to like play the long game with people and we want to be, in relationships, we want to help them self-discover. But the real truth, I think, is that if you really have a strong relationship with somebody, you owe it to them. Okay. You owe it to them. And I heard a quote from Ben Kinney. I say it in my class, but he said, when you offer the best service, you owe it to people to have them work with you. And I think, look, obviously there's a fine line there. You don't want to be vomiting Keller Williams on people and turning them off. But if you have a strong relationship with them and they respect you and you're coming from contribution and you can help them, doesn't that compel you? I mean, it's just like being a great agent. When you know a buyer, when you can help a buyer or seller, right? It compels you to let them know you're an agent and that you can help them. And I think people need to be more compelled in this moment to help these people, these other agents, because Michelle, if you get an agent to KW today in this moment, and they look back a couple of years from now and they buy into all the things that we have to offer, I mean, they're going to be grateful to you. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
going to be grateful to you. And it's just that simple. And maybe a little bit of uncomfortable, conversations can change a lot more lives. But we don't want to, we don't want to bum rush these people, but I think we need to be a little bit more compelled because they're going to all wish you had told them sooner. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that Lucas Sheridan has taught me is, at one point he was having a hard time making some phone calls, and then he was just kind of talking himself through it. And he finally made a call to someone, and they said, I've been praying for someone to call me because I didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
So you don't know who's praying for your call today.
Exactly.
You can get a lot of people who are like, oh, no, I'm not interested. Thanks anyway. Don't call me. I'll call you. But I think when you're just saying, I'm not trying to recruit you. I don't want you to move.
Yeah.
I just want to be the person that you would think of first. If anything would ever happen, things would shift or change. I just want to be the first person that you would think of and the first person that you would call. So I'm going to keep in touch with you so that I will stay in that place in your mind. But I loved that concept. You don't know who's praying for your call. Someone out there might be right now. They're buried. They can't figure out how to get out. They're probably accepting whatever change their company has made to their commission structure, because a lot of them did this year. And so rolling into 2024, things aren't as lucrative, but they don't know who to call and they don't know where to start. And they won't call you if they don't know you. So, you have to get in front of them. So,
well, I'm going to use an analogy that I use in my class right now. It's a little edgy, but like I think attracting agents to KW can be a little bit like dating. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to date somebody that's in a relationship, I mean, you don't try to break them up. No, you become their friend. You become someone they respect, right? Then you wait for their boyfriend or girlfriend to screw it up. And, look, I think a lot of our competition probably can't help themselves in a shifting market to, with screwing it up. But the other side of it is this. People's whys change, Michelle. My why has changed quite a bit since the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. So somebody you talked to 3, 4, 5 years ago might be in a different position today because their personal why has changed or their real estate company is changing, okay? And maybe they're more receptive, right, than they were 5, 6 years ago when the market was up and nobody wanted to look at their businesses as business owners. So, be more compelled. I mean, look, I think it's kind of an equation, right? Walk the walk first, follow all the things that we have to offer as a company, buy into culture, think like a stakeholder, let this company impact your family, your business, your life. Now you're someone I would imagine that the industry respects even more because the way you do business and the kind of business you're doing. Now you're more valid. Now you can be more compelled to want to help people. And, ultimately, I think that's the equation to being successful is embrace the things that we have to offer as a company, let this company change your life, and then you'll be more compelled to want to share it with people in an authentic way. So
Absolutely. Comes naturally.
now, Michelle, we made it an hour. I know you
Yay.
were thinking about that. All right. So
I was like, what are we going to talk about for an hour?
I have no idea. I just started talking, and next thing you know, it's an hour later. Granted, I am a one-trick pony. I only think and dream about profit share and everything around it. But where is this going for you? Like, okay, I mean, you obviously going to have this legacy that is the market center, and you're receiving owner profit. But where is this profit share legacy for you? What is it? Where do you see this going? What does it mean for you, your family? What are you doing with all this money? I mean, how does it, because we all know it's not about the money. It's about all the amazing things the money does for us and our family. What is this money going to do for you, your family, your legacy? Talk about that as we end this call.
Yeah. So what profit share pays for me is a couple of houses in a couple of different places. And I also offer those houses up for any silent auctions.
Yeah. Where are your other houses at?
In Florida and in Wisconsin.
We're in Florida.
In Spring Hill, so north of Tampa.
Okay, sweet. Now I got a hookup down there. Awesome.
There you do. So, and then I offer it to our agents. So and my sister Melissa does the same thing. You know, when agents want to get away for a little bit, and everybody should, as Gary says, plan your 4-7-day vacations. So we offer it up to them, free or discounted, kind of depending on what they've got going on. But and then auction those things off and do fundraisers for people who are going through things in our office. That for me is where I've been essentially putting profit share money is to do those things. And I think there's a couple other places I would like to have places, and the better profit share does, the more I can offer of that, the more I can say, go use that house for a week for free. Go take your team and do your business planning there. And then I can upgrade to better ones, because right now Spring Hill is a nice place, but it's not water in Tampa. So
we call it the old double down, passive income, double down. You take your passive income from profit share, you buy real estate, right, which generates more passive income, right? And so it keeps going. Now you have kids too, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So my daughter Kayla's an attorney. She's pretty well set. She's pregnant, so she'll be having a baby in March.
That's awesome.
So that's exciting.
Congratulations.
And I have nieces and nephews too. So ideally, when I went through Jordan Freed's class, my goal would be to have a nice trust fund set up for each of them, so that they never have to experience real, true financial strife, and their parents do well and things like that as well. But it's one of those things that, what would your life have looked like if you could have had a springboard, not a safety net, but a springboard into whatever you wanted to do? My daughter to start her own law practice. My son is more of a likes to work outside, likes to work with his hands kind of thing. If he wants to build houses, that's what my brother-in-law does. If he wants to launch into that kind of business, having that first boost.
That's great. Yeah. Fund those college funds, right? For your grandkids.
And then I would love to have a fund to be able to help every time one of our agents has an issue. So, we have a few agents going through cancer and those kinds of things. I would love to be able to just be like, here's my family fund check. That's
great. I love that. So last parting shot to the people that are watching live, and also is going to go onto YouTube, and hopefully we'll impact more than 5 people live. But what's your parting shot to somebody that says, okay, look, I want to get purposeful about profit share. I'm not really sure, where to go, what to do. I know you've kind of referenced this already a little bit, but just give them a summary on what you tell your own agents that want to be purposeful about it. And let's try to change a life here before we get off this call.
Okay. So that's a deep one. I would say probably the most important thing is to set a goal for some sort of contact every single day. So whether that's, like you do, Aaron, which is phenomenal. You make a post every single day, something about profit share. You do have to be somewhat intentional about it. A lot of it will just happen naturally. You'll talk to people, you'll run into people. But if you made it a point to contact people every single day in whatever variety, and everything's acceptable. It doesn't have to necessarily be a video, but it could be. It doesn't have to be a phone call, but it could be. It doesn't have to be a text message or a Facebook message, but it could be. All of those kinds of things, just talk about it more. Curiosity will not kill the cat in this case. It will provide financial freedom for the cat.
Exactly.
So keep talking about it. Don't be scared of it. When people say, well, that's multi-level marketing, blah, 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 blah. No, it's not. You don't have to do anything. You're just being nice, and you're sharing your excitement about where you work. So
I don't have a bunch of agents stacked up in my garage that I need to sell.
no, we don't have any inventory. We don't have any overhead for this part of it. Being a market center owner is very different. I have thousands of dollars expenses I have to make to bring people into profit share. You have no expenses, like you say all the time. What if you did spend a little money on actually doing it? What a crazy return you could have. So,
well, look, and I've done, and people know I did a lot of internet recruiting, but let's just say I've invested $250,000 into leads, right? I've almost made $1 million. Yeah. And the great thing is I don't spend any money anymore. Okay. Yeah. My profit share is like a snowball rolling downhill, right? I built that snowball up top. And, it'll grow through my downline. And, we always tell people, Michelle, don't be a secret agent, right? Mm-hmm. Don't be a secret attractor to KW. I guarantee you right now, there is somebody in your real estate database or somebody you're about to do a deal with that is not happy, that's looking for, is praying for a sign, right?
Absolutely.
And, all you got to do is ask. I mean, I wish more of our agents would say, hey, do you know anybody looking to buy or sell real estate or considering a real estate career, right? Because I think you'd be amazed how many people that are even thinking about it. And the great thing about our company, Michelle, is that you get a new agent to KW, okay, in this market, and they survive. I mean, they're going to crush it. Okay. Yeah. They're going to crush it moving forward, especially if they're a young tech savvy agent who embraces our technology. I mean, I was at Mega Camp. I mean, we got like freaking 22-year-old, $30 million TikToking agents going on right now.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So thank God we're a part of a tech company, right? Because you never know who somebody might become and who they might attract to KW. And I was a very mediocre agent at Coldwell Banker, and look at me now. Okay, so you never know. And my sponsor sponsored one person. You never know. All right, so Michelle, thank you again for taking more than an hour of your time to share with us. And I want you to enjoy the rest of the year. This is actually my last thing on my schedule for the rest of the year. So I've been bouncing around. I'm gonna enjoy this little downtime, and then we'll be back on the road at the first of the year and ready to charge the storm. All right.
Awesome. Yeah, I head to the house in Florida tomorrow. Awesome. And thank you, Aaron, for all that you do for us. You sometimes when we might start to fall away a little bit from the culture, you bring us back. And I really appreciate that.
Well, I'm just taking ownership of this real estate company. I have a huge financial investment in it. I wish more of our associates would do the same.
Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Michelle. And that's it. All right.